boys, drink that Slivovic, you know, plum brandy, very strong, national drink of Croatia. Again, quite often I'll call it the Slivovic War, because alcohol played a huge part in that war, more than most people will even realise. For certain people to get other people to do what they did, they get them drunk. You know, a drunken man will commit an atrocity much easier than a sober man. I have pretty much of a blank when it comes to my childhood. Some people can go back and remember when they're 4, 5, 6 years old. Can't do that. There's just no memory there at all. Whether that's because it wasn't particularly happy. I can remember one time when about 12, just because the bullying at school got pretty bad, I considered killing myself. You know, it was a silly 12-year-old thing. It was in the bathroom, and all these paracetamols were there, and I think the school thing it scarred me quite a lot. The careers advice guy came in and asked me what I wanted to do as a job. And the only thing I was ever interested in really was art. And so I said, well, you know, I'd like to do something in art, maybe go to art college or find out what I want to do in art. And he sneered, you know, and he just said, well, no, let's be serious. And I since realised that I was factory fodder, you know, like a lot of guys, you know, the sort of society we live in, there have got to be people to do manual work. And I soon figured that I was on that route, even against the advice of the careers man. I got a little portfolio together and made myself an interview at the local art college, and pretty naive about it all, and went along, and it works fine, it works good, but you don't have any qualifications, so we can't accept you. So from that time, I think I sort of lost interest and I lost direction. And I met some guys and I started to use harder drugs, and in those days it was very different. Street heroin didn't exist, and especially in the north of England people got their drugs through burgling chemist shops. So that's what we started doing. I was out of my head just about every single day, and my life does get very, very hazy at certain points around those times. It was quite sort of chaotic in a lot of ways, and just moving about, doing the drugs and the family life. And I found a position as an art technician in an Oxford college, Westminster College in North Oxford. And so I moved to Oxford, got a flat in Oxford, and moved to Oxford, and that was probably the most enjoyable job I've ever had. And it seemed pretty appalling what was going on there to me, and even worse that the international community didn't seem to want to do anything. They were just sat on their backsides talking, and it sort of irked me, and I had this sort of urge to go and do something, but I didn't know what. And it kept rolling on for weeks and weeks, and it was getting worse and worse and worse, and nobody seemed to be doing anything. It just horror stories coming out of Croatia and Bosnia. So talking to the lecturer that ran my department at the art college, talking to her one day, and she suggested that, well, maybe you could go and work with children, like do art activities, maybe in refugee camps or something. And it just struck a chord, and I thought, yeah, I got about a month's paid holiday leave owing. So I thought, I'll use the month's holiday leave and go and do so. Instead of just going on holiday and lying on a beach somewhere, I go and do something constructive. we went out for a drink later that night to a bar in Zagreb, and it was only then that we found out who we were and what we were doing. And it turned out that he was a serving British soldier in Cyprus, and apparently half of his unit were gagging to get into the war, and the British government wouldn't go to war, they wouldn't send them there. So it was a really strange situation. He'd come back to England to get married, and he didn't even tell his fiancée. On the spur of the moment, he went to Heathrow Airport, got a ticket and flew off, and he said it was his last fling before he got married. That's quite some last fling, going to a war zone and fighting. He had no qualms about that. He was quite easy with that. I thought it was a bit weird, a bit outrageous, but so we went down to the local post office. It was apparently the recruiting station, and Chris spoke to this woman, a woman soldier in the Croatian army, or HVO, the Croatian Bosnian Defence Force, and he joined up. And I waited outside, and when she came out, she tried to talk me into joining up. They were desperate for fighters and support. And I said, "Oh no, I'm not a soldier. I'm here to work in a refugee camp. I'm just going to do some photographs, and I'm going back over the river." And so she left it at that. And then Chris turned around and said, "Okay, well, I've got to go. We're going to go to the hotel, pick my things up," and she's taken me to the base on the front line. And it was still only sort of 11 o'clock, and so I've got time to waste, and I still wanted to get some photographs, and I hadn't spoken to anybody. So another idea started to creep into my head, that it's always this step further, until you realise you've gone too far and you can't get back. And I said to her, "Well, I'm doing a sort of reporting thing for my college. I need photographs to talk. Could I come and take some photographs at the base and sort of see what's going on?" And she said, "Well, you'd have to have the permission of the commander, but you could certainly come out with us, and if he says yes, you can stay, and if he says no, come back with me." And so we did that. My mind started ticking again, and I thought, well, maybe I should go see what's going on. Maybe I should go and experience it, take some photographs. But I hadn't been off the base, I hadn't done anything. I remember standing in the hallway where all the gun racks are and people handing out weapons, and one of the Brits came over and offered me an AK-47. I said, "Oh, I don't need that. I'm not going to be, I'm going to be shooting my cameras, not that thing." And he sort of laughed and said, "You don't know what it's like out there. If you've got any sense, you'll take it." And then Lee, one of the others, proceeded to tell a story about a British volunteer that was captured by the Serbs. I won't go into the details, but it wasn't nice. And after 2 days of drunkenly playing with him, cutting bits off him, and they shot him in the head. And after he told me that story, and other people were saying, it's Wild West out there, there's no rule, there's no law, nothing, so just to protect yourself, take it. So I did. He proceeded to tell me about this woman. I can't remember, it was a meat grinder or a brick crusher or something, because of language you couldn't specifically pin things down. And they captured the village, they slaughtered some people, and they got this woman out who had 2 babies in her arms, and they made her decide which baby they were going to throw in the brick crusher. And he's telling me this, you're getting this sort of churning feeling in your stomach, and you're thinking, no, that can't be true, because you've not seen man at his wickedest, you know, what he can really do, what he's capable of. And there's this little part of you that thinks, you know, is he telling the truth? Is it propaganda? Is it, you know, they're just saying that, they're talking it up? And you're always left with this little kernel in your mind thinking that. And that stuck with me. And in the first night in this billet, it wasn't for me as an aid worker or anything. I was in with the refugees, you know, beds shoved right, no spaces between the beds, crammed in, probably about 100 people in there. And in the middle of the night, this woman opposite woke up screaming. And I'd found a guy, a young Bosnian guy that spoke some English in the hut. And I'd got to know him a little bit in the evening and went to bed, and she was hysterical, and she was pointing at me and shout at me, eyeballing me, and I didn't know what she was on about. I didn't know what was going on. I asked him, and apparently it was the woman that had a baby thrown into the brick crusher, and she never slept at night, woke up every night screaming, and she was actually imploring me, you know, why aren't you doing something? Why is your country not doing something? And you know, you want to evaporate. You know, you don't want to be there. You just want to evaporate. I would have rather been at the front line, being shelled and shot at, than be in this place of, you know, utter depression and somebody wailing every minute of the day, and every day somebody's hearing their brother's been shot or their daughter's been killed, or, you know, it's never ending. It was just every day going on and on. And I just couldn't cope with it, basically, you know. And I thought, well, go and do something. I wasn't even sure whether I was doing the right thing. I wasn't going to go home. So I did that, and I went back and joined the unit proper. You know, it's like sand. You get so far down in sand, you don't think it's going to be hard to get out, but you're not going to get out. That suction just holds you in there. And if you stay there long enough, the water will come up and bloody drown you. And that was how I started to see it.